Elena Viktorovna covered her mouth with her palm and widened her eyes, looking at her son. Denis knew that his mother would not support him. He knew she would be against it. He jumped up from his chair and began pacing the kitchen with wide steps. "So you're planning to marry a girl who is pregnant by someone else?" his mother clarified, barely regaining her speech. Denis, frowning, nodded. "Son, are you out of your mind? I can't leave Anya in trouble. I love her." "And does she love you?" He paused near the table. Then he leaned over it, resting his fists on it, and shook his head. "I don't know." "See? For whom are you planning to be heroic? To ruin your own life?" Elena Viktorovna smirked. "You dreamed of becoming a surgeon. Go after your dream. Let this frivolous girl solve her own problems." Denis slumped back onto the chair and hid his face in his hands again. His feelings for Anya overshadowed his rationality. He had kept them inside himself for so long that as soon as they burst out, he completely lost control over himself. "You are such a wonderful person. You have a big, kind heart," Elena Viktorovna said affectionately, stroking her son's head, like in his childhood. "A great future awaits you. This dishonest, ill-mannered girl is not a match for you. I have invested so much in you, worked 2 shifts. No, my dear, however you want it, I won't give you to her." Denis brushed his mother's hand off his head and rushed to his room, hiding the tears welling up in his eyes from her. He lay on his bed for a long time, staring at the ceiling's intricate shadows of trees. Then he abruptly sat up, turned on the desk lamp, and took out an old, worn-out book from the shelf. In it, Denis kept all his savings. The amount had accumulated to a decent sum. He spun in his chair, carefully pondered everything, and sent a message to Anya. "I found the money." He froze, waiting for a response, examining the scattered bills on the table. In the next moment, his mother peeked into the room. Her son's sudden wealth caught Elena Viktorovna's attention. She approached closer, estimated the approximate amount at a glance, and asked, "Do you want to buy something for yourself?" "Mom, it's none of your business," Denis snapped, flipping his phone face down to prevent his mother from seeing the message he had received from Anya, and he nervously started tapping his fingers on the table. "Look at yourself. As soon as you got involved with that girl, you became rude and insolent. No respect for your mother." Elena Viktorovna put on a hurt expression and hurriedly left. At any other time, Denis would have followed to apologize, to make amends for his behavior. But stubbornly, he remained seated in his place, and as soon as the door closed behind his mother, he immediately grabbed his phone. Anya sent the time and address of the clinic where they were supposed to meet tomorrow. She thanked him and added an innocent smiling emoji at the end. Denis's face brightened, and his fingers darted across the screen again. "Anya, if everything works out, will you come with me?" It took less than 3 seconds for her response to come. "Yes." It was difficult to describe in words the full spectrum of emotions that overwhelmed the love-struck boy. He fell onto the bed and began typing message after message, pouring out everything he had held inside for years. He tossed and turned throughout the night, unable to fall asleep, scrolling through their conversation with Anya, where she reciprocated his feelings but repeatedly echoed the words his mother had said earlier, "I am not a match for you." Denis did not consider Anya frivolous. He did not consider her dishonest. Perhaps she was simply never taught how to love. That's why Anya had gotten herself into a dubious situation, allowing some scoundrel to take advantage of her against her will. He jumped out of bed in the early hours of the morning, got dressed, and sprayed half a bottle of cologne on himself. His strange behavior raised his mother's suspicions. While he critically examined his reflection in the mirror, she approached from behind and caught her son's attention. "What's going on?" "Mum," Denis winked at her. "Where are you going so early?" "I've got things to do, Mummy. Things." As compensation for his rudeness the day before, he leaned towards his mother and planted a firm kiss on her cheek. Elena Viktorovna watched him until he reached the doorway and casually remarked, "I thought we were going to get tickets together." Denis slammed on the brakes and turned around, squinting in confusion. "Mom, where are you rushing off to? First, I want to sort out a few things." "Look at you, all businesslike," Elena Viktorovna teased him. "I'll buy the tickets for the nearest date today, before you have a chance to mess something up." Without saying another word, Denis rushed out of the apartment and ran down the stairs. He intended to arrive first, as befitting a true gentleman, but Anya was already standing near the entrance of the clinic, nervously rubbing her hands. At the sight of her, Denis turned back into his timid self. He didn't even dare to kiss her when they met, even though he had been dreaming of it since yesterday. Denis greeted her reservedly and, feeling a nauseous lump in his throat, handed her the money. He knew what he was paying for. He knew it was a heavy sin, but it was also the only chance for them to be together. When Anya disappeared behind the clinic door, seconds turned into hours for Denis. He sat down in the shadow on a bench and stared at the main entrance, unblinking. Sometime later, his mother called. In such a short period, she had managed to make her way to the train station, wait in line at the ticket counter, and buy the tickets. "The train is in the evening," she warned, throwing Denis into shock. "Make sure you're home by lunchtime." "Mom, what kind of person are you?" Denis exploded. "I asked you for time." He hung up the call, no longer wishing to listen to her anymore. He bent over, hovering above the ground with his legs wide apart. Denis, deep in thought, didn't immediately hear the soft, leisurely footsteps, and when he looked up, he saw Anya pale as chalk in front of him and immediately sprung to his feet. "Well, how did it go?" Denis asked as he approached her. Anya's cracked lips after yesterday's rooftop walk trembled. She looked away and forced out the words, "Too late. 14 weeks. You know." Anya forced a weak smile and looked at the boy again. Little sparks danced in her eyes. "I thought it might be for the best. 10 centimeters. He's already so big. And I wanted to get rid of him." Obeying some previously unknown instinct, Anya placed her hand on her stomach and smiled even wider. Denis watched her smooth movements, her changing expression when she mentioned the baby. Suddenly he leaned forward, wanting to embrace her in a gesture of support. But Anya stopped him, handing him the remaining money. "I paid for the appointment and the ultrasound. Don't worry, I'll pay you back as soon as I can." "You're crazy." Denis covered her hand with both of his and made Anya hold on to the money in a fist. "Keep it. You need it more than me. It's all I can do for you right now. I have a train tonight. If only I could..." "Go." Anya's eyes betrayed her. They welled up with tears. She blinked frequently but continued smiling from ear to ear. "You have your own life, and now I have my own, a different one. It's easy for you to say. Go. Anya, everything I wrote to you, it's all true. Don't doubt it. I really do love you. And I will love you for the rest of my life, I swear. I'll think of you every minute. I'll never forget. Well, if you won't forget, then maybe we'll meet again someday." She stepped back slightly, not allowing Denis to kiss her goodbye. Anya once again placed her hand on her stomach, hinting that the only person she now belonged to was her future child. "Are you okay if I call you sometimes?" Denis shouted after her. She nodded and, proudly straightening her shoulders, walked away.